This video is sponsored by PATCHWERKS, Seattle's synthesizer store.
But don't I make it look easy? Don't I make it look good? Hey,
Hi everybody, my name is Jeremy, this is Red Means Recording, and today we're going to make something from scratch on the Elektron Analog Rytm MkII. It's really fun to say rhythm. You automatically sound Swedish, which is, in some cases good. I did a video yesterday, which I don't know when it's going to be out because time does not make sense for YouTubers. I did it yesterday on the TR-8S, and I made something from scratch, and I talked about what I liked and what I didn't like about the TR-8S, and I was like, you know what? I want to do the same thing with the Analog Rytm. Now, to be fair, I'm not going to dive into every single feature on this because it's a deep beast, and I don't actually use all the features on it. What I am going to do is show you how I use it and what I think is cool about it, and maybe some gripes along the way. So here's sort of like where I was going with some of my like analog Rytm only beats. I like to get real nasty with this thing. I like to get like real synthetic and nasty and fun, and that's what we're going to do. So brand new project, brand new, fresh everything. Each one of these is a sound, and you can see that they are marked as such here. It's really quiet, isn't it? Like compared to what I just played you. That's because the first thing I want to do is I want to go over to the effects section by pressing effects and holding comp, and I'm going to turn up the compressor. So mix all the way up. Something like that. I would suggest that that is the first thing that you do because otherwise this thing will not really sound as pumpy and cool as it should be. It's an analog compressor and it sounds really good. Each one of these pads represents an engine. If we go to source, if I'm out of effects section, I go to source, I can double click, and each one will have a series of engines that can be applied to that pad. And they're all analog, which is really, really wild. You can also mix samples in there, and we may do that later. But first, let's go ahead and get our tempo down to, I don't know, like 109 and get a click going. It's a little fast. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and record a beat. I'm going to give myself 2 bars here by going to page, function page, excuse me, geez, function page, and why don't we just give ourselves all 4 bars? So we have 16 steps here, but we can make it up to 4 of those. And that's what I want. And immediately we have 4 bars. And by hitting page, you can move between them like that, which is nice. Really, really simple. I actually don't even know how to do that on the TR-8S. So we'll go ahead and quantize record. Wait till it comes around. You may be hearing some velocity sensitivity, and that's because it inherently has velocity sensitivity, which is really cool and really encourages you to play these pads. So let's go ahead and play around with our sounds a little bit. I'm going to go to mute and mute everything except for our kick and our snare for right now. And we'll go down to the kick and listen to some of the stuff that we can do with it. So we are on the hard BD right now, the Bad Dragon Hard. Classic. This one's cool because it has all of these different transients you can pick from. So let's listen to what some of the different transients or initial click of the sound like. That's no transient. You can hear the nature of the first attack. Changing. So we can even cut kind of dusty like that, which I actually really like. Yeah, that's great. We do have some other ones, and you may notice also that these look a lot like the ones that are in the Syntact, and that's because the Syntact analog engines share a ton of stuff with this. So you can get a lot of what the Analog Rytm has in the Syntact, which is really, really, really cool. Let's go ahead and go over to our snare and adjust this. It's also really a great way to understand how drum synthesis works. What are the components of drum synthesis? The pitch sweeps, the noise, the ticks, all that. So this is hard. Go to classic. You can hear that we do have a sort of 808, classic 808 606 style feeling to this. And here's an FM. Natural actually gets pretty close to how what's that WMD drum module? I can't remember what it's called, but this reminds me of it a bit. So you can actually have all of the analog engines on different ones. Like they'll share each other. Like I could have this be a bass drum if I wanted to. A bass drum. Like this one sounds farty, right? Do I want it to sound like a fart? No. We also have probability in this, which is really, really nice. So if I go over to the kick drum and go to the trig section, I can either turn probability down universally, or have this up, and I can do what is famous on the Elektron sequencers, and I can come in here and lock these to a particular set of parameters. People complain sometimes that these look unintuitive, but I promise you that it's just like playing any instrument. You get very, very fast and very, very up to speed fast when you take the time. And once you understand the Elektron workflow with one box, especially the square format ones, you will be able to fly around on the other ones. I like that. We can turn off the metronome off now. Let's go up to our hi-hats. Hi-hats and cymbals are one of the hardest things to do in synthesis and get them to actually sound good. And, you know, your mileage may vary on how you like the way that these sound. I think it's okay, but we do have some options. So we have classic and metallic and then basic. I actually really like basic. So we're going to go to each one and change it to basic. Cool. I'm going to go to the closed hi-hat and do something that I like to do to all my hi-hats, and that is I like to go into the LFO, go to decay time. I'm going to change the wave to random. I'm going to change the mode to trig. Actually hold, excuse me, and turn the depth up. And now we have some cool variation on our hi-hat. Oh yeah, and also don't forget, each engine has some overdrive, which can be real nice. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of the bass out that by going to the filter here, changing it to high pass. We don't get a dual filter like we do in some of the other engines, like on the Syntac, but that's pretty cool. I like that. I think that's pretty badass. However, I think we can make it even better. So I'm actually going to go hit the trig record mode right here, go back into here, make sure I'm not in effects. I'm going to clear this out by hitting function clear. And I'm going to go into chromatic mode and play the pads here, something that the TR-8S cannot do. It's going to elevate this into something that you could actually make like an entire song on, depending on what kind of genre you want to write in. And that's really inspiring to me. It's just this nasty, dirty, sort of clipping-esque possibility that I'm kind of intrigued by, and I'm kind of like, can I write like a really chemical sounding like rap album with this thing? And the answer is yes. Yes, you can. So let's go ahead and do that. Claps. Now, see how there's these two little lines between some of these? That's because they're connected in what's called a choke group. So we might need to actually get rid of our, if we want to use the clap. If we want to use the clap, we're going to need to get our rim shot off of where the clap would go. That's fucking hot as hell. Yeah. Now, you can do some fun stuff with this. This is monophonic, meaning the voices themselves are not stereo, but you can, obviously the reverb stereo, and you can pan things. But another fun thing you can do that I really like to do sometimes is go over to the LFO and turn this to pan. And that's down an amp, pan. And listen to what happens as I speed. I'm going to speed this way up, like super fast multiplier. We'll make it a sine wave. So super fast, super fast. Listen to what happens when I start turning up the depth. You hear how it just fucking went wide? That's because we're using basically an audio rate modifier, an audio rate LFO on the pan itself. Okay, the toms. Now, these default to these analog tom sounds, which are okay, but they take up a lot in the mix. They will just slurp up your mix. So if we go to source, we'll see that we have BT or bottom tom, XT, and then I think this one's XT as well. So the analog engines in here for the toms, there's a bottom tom, which is a specific engine, and then these that are all from the XT thing. We also have noise, impulse, and disable. Now you're wondering, what is impulse? It's this tiny little click. And the reason that you might want to use these is because you can actually send, there's multiple outputs on the back of this, and you can actually send this impulse out to trigger things in like Eurorack and stuff like that, which is pretty cool, but not very useful for us here. There's not much we can do with this, even if we like overdrive the impulse or anything like that. So we're not going to use that. So I really do like to overdrive these toms. Like that. Something like that. That's pretty cool. I think I have a little too many right there. We'll just do 3. Let's see if we can make this sound any more interesting by maybe we'll send it to the delay. We'll go into our effects, delay settings, and we'll turn this into a ping pong. And maybe faster. I want to try actually a bandpass filter on this if we have one. Yeah. And go to our LFO and go to filter and frequency. That's cool. Bandpasses are one of my favorites. That's great. What are we going to do with our low tom? Maybe we start using a sample. Let's talk about samples. Here is where I think this device actually kind of starts to suck. And I think it's actually something that I'm feeling about all Elektron sample devices, Octatrack, Digitect, and this. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my Digitect and I love this thing, but the way that samples are dealt with in the Octatrack and here and the Digitect is there's a limited amount of sample memory, a surprisingly limited amount that you can load onto the entire device. And then there's a very limited amount that you can load into the sample pool for your project. It's 128 samples, and then like the number of samples that you can load onto this itself is pretty low as well. You run out of it fast if you want access to a lot of different samples. And I do. Samples are something that if I depend on them in something like this, they become really, really important. It's not my favorite way of dealing with samples. I like the way that Deluge does it, and that I have just like unlimited amounts. Also, mono samples on this, not stereo. So kind of frustrating. So I can turn down our tom engine and just have the sample there. And we do have some controls over this, like bit reduction, sample start and end, and tuning. So that's kind of nice, right? So we're going to use that as like a little crash symbol at the beginning of our pattern. So let's see if we want to add any delay or anything. We might go back. No, I still want that delay like that. Cool. Back to play. Go ahead going to do something that Elektron boxes are really great for, and that is conditional triggers in terms of when something plays back. We did probability, but there's also something you can do that's really cool. So I've put these snare hits here, these snare accents at the end of my 4 bars, but I don't want them to play every 4 bars. I want them to play every 8 bars. So I'm going to go into here and hold this down and go to 2 of 2, which means that these will only play the second time the entirety of this goes through. So now we have some built-in fills, which is nice. That's kind of cool. Why don't we just put dual Atmoses on these things right here? Suitably nasty for me. So let's go ahead and put that here. The snare is going to come around in just a second. See, we have that little fill there. It's very nice. Okay. I already have what I need for a crash cymbal. That's that. So I'm going to go into samples again. I'm going to go into the factory and see if I can get any waveforms. Here we go. So we got some single cycle waveforms we can actually play some stuff with, just like the Digitax comes from. So let's do a square wave. We'll load a sawtooth wave. Just like a bunch of these so that we have stuff to play with. Cool. Yeah, don't sleep on single cycle waveforms in these, and I'll show you why. So let's go over to our voice here. We'll turn our cymbal down, and we'll go into here, find, let's go to this sawtooth wave, and what we need to do is loop it. And now we're running basically a really simple oscillator. All right, so knowing that this is on a choke group as well, let's go ahead and put another one of our samples on it. So we'll turn this down. So we'll go into like pulse wave maybe. Loop. Yeah, I like that a lot. Function yes. Let's make some scenes real quick.
Hi, I'm Justin, and I have a question for you. Do you like synthesizers? I'm trapped in a computer. PATCHWERKS is Seattle's #1 place for synthesizers and synthesizer-related accessories. With a world-class selection and an incredible staff, PATCHWERKS is ready to ensure you get the right piece of gear, every time. Please help me, I can't get out of here. Whether it's the latest groovebox or that €1 rack module you didn't know you needed, PATCHWERKS has it all. The staff are all actively making and performing music too, so you know they've put their big fat fingers on it, to bring you the best information and advice. Help, I can't feel my legs. Shop only at patchworks.com or visit their showroom on Stoneway in Fremont. PATCHWERKS, Seattle's synthesizer store.
Scene mode here. Now, each one of these becomes a set of lockable parameters for the entire machine. And it means that you can create little vignettes that you can then just switch between. I'm going to make a couple to show you what I mean. It's very similar to what the Machine Plus does with scenes. There is a big old frickin' caveat here, and that is that you can only lock amongst all 16 scenes 42 parameters, which I'm assuming is some limitation of the internal device's memory or something, but like, I really would have liked to see unlimited lockability here. Now, that said, it's pretty amazing what this thing can do in that respect, considering that it's switching between analog engines, samples, and all this other stuff. But at the same time, you know, it's just one of my big gripes with it. You have to go to the track. So track, and let's go ahead and make our kick drum small. So one way we can do that is by holding down the amp. So like this, and you can see that I've got 2 locks now on this, right? Locks 2. We're going to do the same thing with our snare. So this will be our small scene, tiny baby scene. Yeah, that's good. Another fun one I like to do is sort of a lo-fi one in which I take all of the like filters down and make it kind of grungy. So that's what we're going to do on this one. Track snare, hold this down, and I need to kind of decay this a bit more. So this gives you a way to easily just switch back and forth between some really, really big performance options, which is nice. And I'm out of locks. So that's a big gripe. Obviously, I would love to be able to fill these up a little bit more, but I'm pretty extreme with how I go about locking things. So there's that. Now, there's one more thing I'll show you that I haven't really used much, and that is performance. So here, it's a similar thing. If I go into this right here, I can lock stuff to this, and there's a FedEx truck, so there's probably some beeping in the video now. But I can lock stuff to this and increase the density of it as I hold down the pad because they're velocity sensitive. So really obviously, a real obvious one for this would be, if I go to this, here we go. So you can see through locking, well, first of all, your pattern needs to be good, but through scenes and performances, you can get really cool with this thing. And it just takes a bit of work, you know, just a little bit of work to set things up, but it's so worth it. So anyways, that's it. That's how I make stuff on the Analog Rytm. I'll probably put some vocals on this to take it out. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you got any fun tips and tricks for this thing, leave it in the comments. I think this is an amazing device. I hate the sample management, but that's mostly because I don't have samples on here that I really like. I put, you know, a bunch of the Elektron samples thinking like, oh, this would be fine. But I need to think that through a little bit more and think about what I want to reach for when I'm making beats with all this stuff going on in them. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Jeremy. This is Red Means Recording, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Got me hot. Got me hot. Hey, well that's exactly what the look came for. You throwing shots from afar, I'ma meet you at your front door. So hard to be doing what you really meant for. You did. But don't I make it look easy? Don't I make it look good? Hey, now you drank up all my liquor. Come on, what I'm supposed to do now? And you talking all that shit. Now come on, you gon' have to back it up. If I get too high now, sugar, come on, I might never come down. I might never come down. Not ever come down. Let me get down. Come on, hey, you not ever come down. No, let me get down. Hey, you not ever come down. Wanna get down. You might never ever come down. It took too long to get this high off the ground. Don't run, just stay away. Come on, can't beat it, can't beat it, can't beat it, can't beat it with the big bad dough. Can't see it with this pitch black Gucci frames on. Let me take these pictures off. Let me get the full scope. Full screen HD. Let me take another picture. Let me pull it to the pre-show. Whoa, cool beans, that's a whole lot of reefer. Let me help you with the pre-roll. You drank up all my liquor. Come on, what I'm supposed to do now? And you talking all that shit. Now come on, you gon' have to back it up. If I get too high now, sugar, come on, I might never come down. I might never come down. Not ever come down. No, let me get down. And you might never ever come down. It took too long to get this high off the ground. Don't run, just stay a while. You might never ever come down. It took too long to get this high off the ground. Don't run, just stay a while.